I see a life in my dreams that I don't.
Hey guys, what is up everyone? Today is Sunday the 13th of June. I am LiamJRich and joining me is the wonderful SitDownProductions. Welcome on in.
Hello.
Hello there, mate. So today, something a little bit new, something I've not really done too much before, is more of almost like a podcast format rather than a normal streaming format that would normally take place. So hope you're all doing fantastically well, and there's me realising that the reason my computer's been really frozen is because I had my Google Chrome and my own Twitch feed back up again, so how typical of that. Gaming issues aside, how are you doing today? Nice weekend, mate?
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you very much. How about you?
Yeah, it's been alright. Weather is hot as always. Barbecue on Saturday, which was nice. Had some burgers, had some pork belly, the usual. Lots of halloumi, as everyone loves it. And then just mainly just chilled out from there, watching a lot of these E3 bloody presentations, which is the bulk of what we're here to talk about. Lovely little transition there. Yeah, there is just loads of announcements that have taken place. We are going to be covering... Obviously, we can only do so much. Unfortunately, Square Enix's presentation took place as we were getting ready to go live. So we haven't had much of a chance to see that, but we'll just briefly touch upon that first whilst it's fresh in our minds. From the main announcement of the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Did you see much about that before you were getting ready?
Yeah, it didn't inspire me. It's
They've seemed to have gone for the exact same problem as we had with the Marvel's Avengers, in the sense that, for the most part, the characters look very much like their normal counterparts until you look at Star-Lord. Star-Lord with a mask, perfect. Star-Lord without the mask, who is he? And he just looks like and his hair just seems too much of a quiff, almost like mine today, basically.
Yeah, it's always a generic problem as well, isn't it? When you get a movie franchise, it gets an official game and doesn't have the voices of the actors that actually played them in the movies. That transition sort of takes a bit of a downturn.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, weirdly enough, I think they have used the same. It does very much sound like Bradley Cooper, who's in Rocket. Because, of course, you can't really take the mick out of Bradley Cooper's likeness when he's a 2-foot raccoon from space. So, hopefully, it shouldn't be too much of a problem in the grand scheme of things to make sure that he is good. But, I mean, it looks all right. It's just like Marvel's Avengers. I might touch it. I might play around with it for a little bit. But overall, I'm not too fussed on it.
No, it really didn't impress me, if I'm honest. I was very, very disappointed. And I saw the headline first as well, that, Guardians of the Galaxy game, put it on, and then there was whatever that was, with a frame rate that wasn't barely hitting 30 and combat that looked janky at best.
Yeah. I mean, from what I saw on it, so for those of you who haven't watched it, basically it looks like it's a third-person single-player story. You play as Star-Lord and are able to use the other Guardians' abilities and powers, almost like hot map to a button. They showed off quite a bit of gameplay, but as Sit Down has just quite correctly stated, it wasn't running very well. It'll be interesting to see what that's like with the 4K stream afterwards, but I don't think that's going to help that footage. It didn't look like it did much.
No. A bit of licensed music that was all right as well.
Oh yeah, definitely stream friendly. That is, yeah. All that lovely 80s tunes that were banging on there. Then we also had the announcement, which I'm sure a lot of people are very happy with, is that the Final Fantasy games 1 through to 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all being. I believe the word was remastered rather than a reimagining like 7.
Yeah, it was more like a 2D remaster as well, because there are 3D versions of some of them about, but this was a 2D version, which, it's closer to the original product, so some people will probably be happy with that, but obviously there'll be some people who'll be thinking, well, this is just another cash cow sort of move by another company with old games.
I mean, it'll make money. Some of those games, I didn't even know. I'm fairly certain you could probably... I don't know, can you get those games before? We just don't know, really. So it'll be interesting to see.
3, 4, 5 and 6 are on Steam. I'm not sure about 1 and 2.
I think I had 6 on the PS Vita, so I know that they've been around. You could get them, but yeah, it's Steam and mobile that it was announced for, which was strange that they took the mobile angle, actually.
Yeah, I think there was some interesting stuff for the mobile, because they did announce some more content for Final Fantasy Brave Exvius as well, which has been going 5 years, which is quite scary, because I remember playing that when it first came out. It holds up quite well for a mobile game, to be fair, so it's nice that they're still supporting it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good sign when video game companies always jump into mobile, especially the ease of access. Those sort of games, I wouldn't imagine are mechanic heavy, in the sense of you would need 14 different controllers to be able to beat a boss battle or something. It's very point and click, so to speak, of, or minimal moving around. You could do it with where they have the joysticks or the thumbsticks on the screen itself. That could be easily achievable. Yeah,
exactly.
And then what was the other thing I saw on there? Oh yeah, they were announcing the Marvel's Avengers: The War for Wakanda expansion. That was the last thing I saw before I started coming on here. It looked alright, actually. I'll give them that, but ultimately this is a DLC that was planned to come out last summer. And here we are this summer still waiting for it.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of comments as well in the stream about Spider-Man. I don't think there was any mention of that unless I missed it. So
No. I mean, it'd be very much... Obviously, Spider-Man was announced pre-launch. I genuinely don't think it's going to be one of those things that comes up until everything with their original roadmap, which in a sense ended with War for Wakanda, shows up, because of course they need to get their own stuff in gear before they start moving on to offering exclusive characters like Spider-Man for the PlayStation, or even if he is, I imagine now, because of how that game's turned out, that it's very much likely that that will be more of a timed exclusive rather than a full exclusive. Because it just seems odd to have the same game available on all consoles, but only one character locked off for a certain thing. I know Soul Calibur did it in the years when you had, depending on which version you were getting, getting Darth Vader or Yoda. But given the amount of stuff that they would have to work in, mechanics, everything like that, it's just totally different, really. So, I imagine if we do see Spider-Man, it will be at some form of an announcement later on this year after the War for Wakanda expansion. Plus, bug-related fixes are resolved from there.
Yes.
But yeah, that was all I saw from Square Enix so far. Obviously, I'll watch that again. Might touch upon it again later on in the week, depending on how things go. And so, yeah, what we're going to do... it was originally written in date order, so we're originally going to be going right from the beginning with regards to the Battlefield 2042 announcement, which I will briefly touch upon later on. But I think it would be remiss of us to start this without first talking about possibly the main event of this entire showcase, barring Tuesday's Nintendo performance, which would be the Xbox Bethesda conference. So overall, before we go into sort of some of the games that are available there, what did you think about the conference itself?
It wasn't bad. My major issue with this was that every single game that I saw, the first thing that came to my mind, well, is it coming out this year? And 80% of the answer, the time was, yeah, it's not this year.
Yeah. I mean, we'll be touching upon the dates on there, obviously, for all of the games that had a date announced. For the most part, I was able to write down, so we'll be able to cover those as we go on. I think it really does push home the fact that Xbox, as a brand, do not care about physical releases anymore. When they show 30 games and 27 of them are coming to Xbox Game Pass. Now, I've got a screenshot of what the 30 games are going to be, or what the 27 games that are going to be on Game Pass are going to be. And so, I could look at that and, spend about half an hour investigating it before I go in, to then say, "Hi, Pooch, you okay?" So the dog's just popped in to say hello. The argument to make that there are just 3 of those 30 games that aren't going to be launching day and date on Game Pass. So it's interesting. We'll just have to wait and see exactly. I mean, by the time my next stream, when it comes to looking more at E3, which will probably be more likely Wednesday rather than Monday, I will most definitely, double check and just check exactly which of those 3 games aren't on there. I imagine it's probably, if it wasn't mentioned on the stream, it probably was there, but of course I'll have to come back to that. So yeah, I mean, overall I thought it was a good performance. It was a good showcase, 90 minutes, 30 games. Some gameplay on some games, which we'll touch upon. Other ones would be... It's a shame we didn't see a bit much, sometimes a bit underwhelming, but, we'll touch upon each of those with the games that we announced. And, I mean, let's be honest, there's only one game you can really start with when it comes to Xbox and Bethesda, and that's Starfield. Officially announced as an Xbox exclusive. So, finally answering that question on everyone's tongues, whether or not Starfield would be announced for PlayStation. Of course, Xbox are never going to announce that it is, any of their games would be coming to PlayStation. They've just simply said it is an Xbox exclusive. So it means, obviously, Game Pass, Xbox, PC, that sort of thing will all be on there to go on. And it looks, from all intents and purposes, it looks like it's actually set within our universe, just in the future, as opposed to, some sort of weird futuristic thing, similar in likeness to Outer Worlds. It looks more realistic as to how we would do things in the future. And what were your thoughts of the footage that they showed on there? Obviously, it was an early teaser by all accounts, rather than showing any significant details with regards to games. Oh, I appear to have zoomed in on my side as well. Yeah, I mean, ultimately as well, one thing I did notice was they announced a date that was so far in the future. I just thought the moment they announced that, it is definitely getting delayed. I mean, they've got a date to work with, but it's the 11th of November 2022, which is the 11th anniversary of Skyrim. Don't know why they needed to release it on that date, but what were your thoughts on what they showed on there?
It was interesting. I think the problem with E3 has always been, and I try to be optimistic about all the stuff that I see at E3, but you don't see really any gameplay there. But as you said, it was interesting to see that it didn't look like it was in an alternate universe. It looked like it was potentially set quite in a recent time compared to ourselves, right? So and you get the attention to detail which you'd expect with a game that's been in development for that long. Bethesda are very meticulous with that sort of thing. So, and the major thing, as you pointed out already, is the fact that it is an Xbox exclusive. So,
arguably, that is the thing that's going to be grabbing all the headlines for the next couple of days. Over anything from that conference that they've shown. The Starfield being an Xbox exclusive is something that people have been asking for a long time, and now that answer has finally been asked. Obviously, everyone's going to say on the Sony side of things, which of course I only play on PlayStation. Ultimately, Game Pass has had me thinking I should be investing into the Xbox family, but to be honest, now this seems as even more of a sign that, I should be putting money towards a second console for these reasons, or at least, ultimately, it's very difficult to get into the PC gaming market nowadays with GPUs being what the cost that they are. But, ultimately a Series S or Series X might be something on the horizon in the next few months, obviously, given all the Game Pass announcements and Bethesda, obviously. It is quite clear now that the bulk of Bethesda games and all of their studios will be an Xbox exclusive, which obviously is a massive loss for gaming in the sense of PlayStation. But
definitely,
as they say, you can't argue about having the best exclusives and then complain when someone else has exclusives as well, which is what Sony have very much been capable of doing these last couple of years. In saying, obviously, but it was interesting. I mean, it looks set within our universe. I mean, the rocket, in the sense of how it lit, was very much akin. There wasn't really much sign of an alien or anything like that, which of course I'm sure there will be. But it was a nice little teaser. Better than when they just showed us the logo 2 years ago. I'd argue. Yeah, it seems quite early on in its development. Obviously, if it's got a current release date of the 11th of November next year, that's a lot of time to work on it. So it's a target that if they can't make it, we're not going to find out for at least a year or so if that gets delayed. So we'll then very briefly move on over to Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. Now, Stalker 2 they used the words fully next gen experience, 4K, 60 frames per second. I'm not familiar with the Stalker series, but I know it by reputation rather by name, is that it's set in I think, this one is called Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl, so I'm not too sure. Obviously, it's some sort of post-apocalyptic sense. One thing I noticed was quite interesting was that the game was fully Russian dubbed. So even the gameplay trailer that they revealed, and this one did look like gameplay as opposed to, pre-rendered. They were speaking entirely in Russian with English subs, which I think is actually quite a good experience, unlike the grand old argument of the Metro series. Obviously, what I felt was one of their weakest points was their voice acting at times. So that kind of eliminates this option on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been very easy if you'd have just came in at that point and saw it and thought, "Oh, that's a Metro game."
You know what? I spent half that video. I was like, "Is this a Metro game, or is this some sort of retelling of the original in a more serious way?" And it just goes to show. It looked very good, and we don't have to wait too long to see it. I mean, it is a console launch exclusive, so I think this one. I'm not too sure if by saying the word console launch exclusive rather than Game Pass it is day one Game Pass. But to say console launch exclusive rather than Xbox exclusive makes me think that it might be open to more platforms in the future. But we will have to wait and see on that one. But that was 28th of April next year, the announcement date. So we'll have to wait and see for that. We then had one of my anticipated games for the year, Back 4 Blood, or as we call it, Left 4 Dead 3. Obviously, reconfirming the date, 12th of October. Another announcement, Day 1 Game Pass, which again was something that a lot of people were talking about this week.
Yeah, that's a massive thing for me personally, because a lot of my friends have been talking about Back 4 Blood since it was unveiled. We were huge Left 4 Dead fans, so it's been on our radar, and the delays it's had, hopefully it sticks this release date, and the fact it's on Game Pass is another win for Xbox in that sense, because I think a lot of people, nostalgia or not, or people new to the franchise will be thinking, oh, that looks interesting. Because the gameplay looked really tight, really good.
It did. I mean, the gunplay looked really good. 4-player co-op, which probably goes without saying. I always felt that their original release date seemed a bit weird. Playing a zombie game in October sounds perfect. Playing a zombie game, what was the original date? May or June? Just seemed a bit out of place, to be honest. But one of the other announcements that they had there was that they are introducing a swarm mode, which I think was something similar in Left 4 Dead 2 as well. So PvP, whereas one team plays as the zombies and the special kinds. So yeah, that was 12th of October, obviously reconfirming that date. I can't imagine that gets pushed back now. The gameplay was looking quite good on this one. And I can't imagine it's going to go away so super quick.
There was a lot of it as well. It wasn't like it was just a brief snippet of
No. There was definitely a lot of variety there as well. In terms of the gameplay, in terms of the types of zombies. Obviously, they had big monster zombies that were taking up half the road on there. It kind of gave me... they also showed off... I mean, it looked very similar to the hordes of Days Gone, where you've got like dozens of zombies swarming on you. Which, of course, yes, ultimately, Left 4 Dead 2. And I can't imagine anyone talks about Back 4 Blood without mentioning Left 4 Dead, because it's almost like a spiritual successor, which is even more ironic given the fact that there was another company that announced essentially the Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead spiritual successor as well, which I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it will be on here later on as well. But yeah, that looked very good. I'll definitely be jumping into that. It might be worth a purchase just to play, but I will wait and see. Obviously, with regards to cross play, cross progression, obviously words that a lot of these games aren't using right now. More of an in-depth look to see if we are going to be able to play with friends, because I feel like Left 4 Dead was the problem in itself. That it was, if I recall, Left 4 Dead was PC and Xbox originally as well. I don't think Left 4 Dead ever came to PlayStation, did it?
I don't believe it did, no.
No. So it'd be interesting, of course, yes, being a day one Game Pass, of course, that does give the preference to, Xbox, but I'm sure it'll be excellent to see when it comes out as well, even on PlayStation. A very brief touch upon of a new game co-developed by Xbox Game Studios and Avalanche, a game called Contraband, very slow motion, pre-rendered trailer, essentially looks like a drug smuggling co-op open world game. Not really much to say on this one. It's an interesting concept for a console game, rather than being something you'd only find in Steam, but there really wasn't that much there. There was no date, there was no real announcement, no gameplay or anything like that. So we can only really touch upon that briefly, because there's not much more to say apart from the fact that it looks like a cartel game, basically. We then got Sea of Thieves. Are you a Sea of Thieves player?
I actually just started last Thursday, so when they did the announcement, and I had to sort of think, is that Jack Sparrow? I was absolutely delighted.
Yeah.
It was one of my highlights, stupidly enough.
I've never played it myself. Again, not having an Xbox means that I haven't been able to play it. But this announcement was a collaboration between Sea of Thieves and Disney for A Pirate's Life, a free update coming out on June 22nd. It has obviously primarily featuring Captain Jack Sparrow of Pirates of the Caribbean, the films. We've got ghosts in there. We've got ghost ships. We've got Davy Jones, and I'm sure Davy Jones, when he came out of the water, which looked epic in its scale. It also was he also on the Black Pearl as well? I couldn't quite get that, but I would imagine it was the Black Pearl.
I'd guess it was the Black Pearl, and that was all gameplay as well. I mean, that's how it looks in games.
That's what I thought as well, was that it did look like it was all in game as well, which is quite good to see. But yeah, you don't have to wait long if you've only just started that. That comes out next week, 22nd of June, which is fantastic. Again, another brief Yakuza update. Obviously, they've announced that all of the games for the Yakuza series are now available on Game Pass. I believe that only really counts as a... I'm getting an alert come in. Clearly, I hadn't turned off all my alerts. But yes, we did just have an alert come in. I will just check on that in a second. And of course, I've gone through technical issues as well. I've just zoomed you out. All hell breaks loose when that happens. Right, there we go. Yeah, you're back, you're fine.
Hey.
Whoever has just followed, because I'm fairly certain that was the follow tune, thank you very much for the follow. I genuinely did think I turned everything off, so my apologies. Even more hilarious, it's my girlfriend. So my girlfriend has ruined the stream for us. She might come in and slap me. My apologies. We love you really. But yes. So just briefly touching upon then. So yeah, it was. I think all the Yakuza games were already on Game Pass. I think this was more just the announcement that it was Yakuza Like a Dragon that was joining the family.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most recent one. It's a next-gen one.
It looks... I mean, I know it's available on PlayStation, and I really don't know why I haven't played it yet. I did try to get into Yakuza 0. Again, it's another thing I might touch upon, but it looked really good. And definitely something I might try. It sounds hilarious, but it almost kind of looks like if Yakuza crossed with the South Park games. In terms of its weird fantasy style weapons and stuff like that, or skills.
Yeah,
so.
it was as if when it came out that I followed the Yakuza series but never played it. But when Like a Dragon came out, a lot of people likened it to like it has an RPG sort of architecture anyway. But then they decided, right, okay, what if it was an actual RPG with wizards and things like that, and just go batshit crazy, do what you want.
Yeah, and it's even funnier because that's the one thing. That it turned out in the end they've actually announced that is going to be the case going forward, that all of their Yakuza games going forward will be turn-based as opposed to the action games of the past. But yeah, I mean, it's all in accordance with Game Pass, really. If you've got the rest of the series on there, you might as well get something else in.
Exactly. Plenty there.
They then showed off Battlefield 2042 some gameplay. Given the fact that it's set in 2042, I would argue that the game looked very modern. It didn't look too futuristic in the grand scheme of things. I mean, one thing of note would definitely be the grappling hook. All of a sudden they had everything was all realistically looking until the grappling hook came in, and I was kind of taken out a little bit. But the UI, if the user interface remains as it is there, that is nice and clean. Very minimalistic, which is some people don't like that, but I'm very much a fan of minimalistic UIs, and it looked nice and clean for the game. And I did notice that when he was flying or getting close to the tornado, the weather effects in the tornado actually impacted almost like when someone was using a counter UAV in Call of Duty. They would fuzz around with the camera or with the map so you couldn't actually see it, which looked very good. But yeah, it looked very good. Obviously, the Battlefield 2042 was announced earlier on in the week with its own little 5-minute teaser trailer, which was basically just 5 minutes of batshit crazy scenarios, kind of looking like partially a little bit like Tenet, partially just crazy all-out war. And again, it's another game we don't have to wait too long for. That's due to release on the 22nd of October. I'd argue the gameplay looked fairly well on. I can imagine it is in a workable state, and it is working to the extent that it should do. So I don't think it will be delayed. I think it will reach that 22nd of October release date, and it just goes to show October is already starting to be a busy month for gaming. More so August, I think. As we'll find out shortly, August is very much a popular game as well, or popular month for new games. So yeah, what were you thought? Are you going to jump into Battlefield 2042 when it comes out, or is it just not something that would interest you?
It's not something for me. I've never really got into the Battlefield series, but that's first-person shooters in general anyway. But I must admit, watching it, I could see like a lot of people that I know that stream, a lot of friends that I know would be, this is my thing, you know what I mean? And the added effects with the natural disasters and everything, really did look so good.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'm a
Battlefield
fan of the clean UI
2042
as well.
definitely. Battlefield 2042 is definitely going to be the Warzone streamers of winter 2021, basically.
Mm. Yeah, I can see it definitely.
Yeah, but
But
no,
yeah,
looked very good. Looked clean, as you said. The UI looks really nice, and I do hope they don't add much to that, if at all. I could see everything that was on there. It was nice and clean as well. So yeah, we'll look forward to more details of that because, again, I'll touch upon it now. We might as well. There's no campaign, and it's going to release for £70 in the UK, which is a massive kick in the teeth.
yeah.
I know there is the argument ultimately. Does a game need to have a campaign? But I've always felt when it comes to first-person shooters that the campaign acts somewhat like a tutorial. It puts you in scenarios that allows you to use the different features, the different the vehicles, the weapons, that sort of thing. Puts you in those scenarios so you don't have to worry. Obviously, when you get to the multiplayer, you don't feel like you've just chucked yourself in the deep end, basically. So no, it looks. It's interesting. It does look like a good game. I think this is one of those very few games that wasn't announced for Game Pass Day 1, which kind of makes sense. I think in this instance, the 2042 gameplay was just in there to say, oh, we've got what we consider, or what DICE and EA consider their strongest game of 2021. On arguably the biggest conference of E3 2021 as well, rather than any deals or the sort. After that, we saw a brief look at 12 Minutes, a game that again, 19th of August, this one's coming out. This is the console launch exclusive, kind of like a top-down of a room with Daisy Ridley and Willem Dafoe in it.
James McAvoy I saw as well.
Yeah, James McAvoy as well. It's very strong casting for a game. Very much an indie by the look of it, which makes me wonder how much of their budget went on the voices. Another game that was day one Game Pass, and I've heard good things about it. People are interested in the concept. I'm not sure what the story is too much, but it'll just be interesting to see how that works out. We've only really got 2 months to go until that one. 2 months, 19th of August. Another one, which I would be gutted if I'm not able to play, Psychonauts 2. Another one. What were your thoughts on Psychonauts 2 and what they showed?
Just to go back to 12 Minutes and also include Psychonauts 2, it's one of those that, because they're on Game Pass on day one, that encourages me as an Xbox player mainly. It's on Game Pass. I pay for the subscription anyway. I'll try it. And sometimes you do get games where you think, I wouldn't have played that otherwise, and you loved it. We've had a lot of examples of that. And Psychonauts 2, I've been excited for. Psychonauts, the first one, was a revolutionary game for its time. So to see what they can do now, 3 generations on from the first one, with the technology we have now, Double Fine as well, they make some very, very good games that go under the radar. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. At no point should anyone, regardless of what console they play, remiss the fact that Game Pass is the future of gaming, in the sense that you are buying a Game Pass subscription to play games like Starfield, like Sea of Thieves, big games. But as well as that, you've also got the little ones. As you just said, you for every big massive release they've also got a couple of games you wouldn't have paid the 20, 30, 40, even 60, 70 quid to play, but because it's on Game Pass and you're already paying for that service, you're gonna give it a try. And 12 minutes. I'm hoping it's a very short game, because just a week later, on the 25th of August, Psychonauts 2 comes out, and that will take over all of anyone's thoughts with regards to Game Pass. It looked good. I'd be interested to learn what they have learnt with regards to, obviously, another game that came out around a similar time as Psychonauts 2, or Psychonauts the original, Ratchet and Clank. We've just seen, obviously, different platforms, but we've just seen, obviously, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart come out, absolutely revolutionary. People are calling it the best game for the PS5 so far. You know, you can't play it on PS4, so it will be interesting to learn what lessons they Double Fine have learned in that time. Obviously, yeah, as you said, what was it? It's been at least 3 console generations since then. I think it was on the original Xbox. So it will be interesting to see exactly how that turns out. But yeah, it's another game that if you've got the Game Pass subscription, 100% you should be investing in it and giving it a try, because you're gonna get that and much more. Speaking of much more, the following little announcement they made was with regards to some of their live service games, but also another announcement with regards to Game Pass. 10 more titles were coming to Game Pass within the next week. Those were Arx Fatalis, Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, Doom 2016, The Evil Within 2, Rage, Wolfenstein 2, and then Fallout 1, 2, Tactics, and 3. I didn't know 3 wasn't on there. I was almost convinced that Fallout 3 was on there already. 1, 2, and Tactics makes sense, but yeah, I genuinely thought, unless it was a case of 3 was on there already for Xbox, 1, 2, Tactics was already there for the console, not the console, the PC, and that's how that's worked. In the sense that they're just bringing it across to all cloud, PC, console all at once. They're then briefly just touched upon, and these are going to just be a few quick points just to clear some of the rafters. So they did talk about Doom Eternal coming out on Enhanced Edition, coming out June 29th. 60 frames per second and ray tracing as the standard with 4K, and there will be a performance mode getting up to 120 frames per second, which on Doom Eternal seems insane. 60 frames is enough for that, so it'll be very interesting to see that in 120. They then very briefly said something about Skyrim and their 10th anniversary. I can't imagine they're going to re-release it on anything else. They just talked about how share your favourite moments and stuff like that, which obviously I think was just on Bethesda's website. Announcement of one of the Fallout 76 new DLCs. It's called Expeditions: The Pit. The Pit is one that has already been touched upon in a DLC location, i.e. In Fallout 3. So it'll be interesting to see what that was like 200 years before then, because of course that's only set in I can't even remember, is it 2077 or 2076 as opposed to... I can't remember.
Yeah. I was watching Naomi's stream when it came up, and we all got so excited with the initial sort of cut to the Pittsburgh sign and thought, oh, new Fallout, and then they said Fallout 76.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, no.
I mean, Expeditions as a mode, it seems to make sense, of course, when you've got, when you've got the pit, it allows you to visit places outside of the area of the original game map. So calling it Expeditions is good. Waiting almost over half a year to get to it, not so good. Considering they have just recently announced that they're removing their Battle Royale mode, an option in which I didn't even know Fallout 76 had until they announced that they were removing it. Then briefly just touched upon Elder Scrolls Online, or ESO, obviously stating that 18 million players have been on it since launch. A game that has really become popular with Game Pass. I'll just very quickly just mention again, they did actually say that Fallout 76 was one of the most popular Game Pass games on the service. Very interesting, that one. I didn't expect that at all. But then again, I mean, you can pick up that game in CEX for about £6 now, so it's not like you'd be saving too much money buying a physical copy right now.
Rip off.
Yeah. Then it was Elder Scrolls Online Enhanced was releasing for next gen this month. I think, again, that was one of those things in which I imagine that'll be releasing. I hope it's a free update, because they have actually given us Elder Scrolls. I think I bought Elder Scrolls Online ages ago, either as a freebie or, on the cheap, which will be nice to see. Then briefly coming across Hades, 13th of August 2021 on Xbox, which can only mean one thing, that surely Hades has got to be coming to PlayStation on the same date.
I would have thought so.
Yeah. I mean, that I've been waiting a long time for that to come over. I have got a Nintendo Switch. I haven't played Hades. I've heard great things. It'll be nice to see.
It's a good game.
Yeah. They then had... this was a small break in between the action, I would argue, with Party Animals. Now, I've not written any notes on here because all I saw whilst reading it is it looked like gang beasts, but animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it's from the same makers. It's I think it's been in early access on PC anyway.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think
sort of one of
they
those
said
that's come
that.
across
Yeah,
console.
I think they announced it a while back. That I think almost last year that game. I think that was announced at some sort of event last year, and that they said that a PC early access was coming on. So it wouldn't be surprising. No fixed release date. They just announced 2022 on that. Then a game that I read the title of that I've already forgotten exactly what the game was about, but it was called Somerville. Another game coming out next year. It can't be that memorable if I can't recall it, but that's just another one that was coming out. We then got the much needed, and I'd argue that this conference would have been deemed a failure without it, Halo Infinite. They finally showed off Halo Infinite. Now,
Yes. Yeah.
it looked amazing. They really have done a lot of work on that game since the original preview last year, the one that forced them to delay it through to this year. Yeah, what were your thoughts on the gameplay then? Or, what you saw from that?
Yeah, I mean, same as like Battlefield. I'm not a massive Halo fan, but you can't help if you're a gamer to sort of see that, and it's nice to see that they've taken that time as well to spruce it up and try and improve upon what the original product looked like.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think as a Halo fan, the multiplayer was probably the big win because it just looks so chaotic and so much fun.
I think Halo as a whole has definitely learnt with regards to multiplayer. Of course, the major announcement, which I think has been announced previously, is that the multiplayer is free to play.
Yes.
So you won't need to own Halo Infinite to be able to play the Halo Infinite multiplayer. It will be 120 frames per second. That will obviously be launching this side alongside Halo Infinite. They just use the word this holiday, so there isn't a fixed date yet. 120 frames per second. Which will be again another interesting innovation on Xbox's part. One thing I noticed, which I do definitely want to touch upon with regards to the multiplayer, it very much looked like they had custom vehicles. Like I was looking at what looked like a Banshee, but very much in the style of the military vehicles as opposed to the alien vehicle, or the Covenant vehicles from previously, which looked very good. I always wondered whether or not there would be that customization option, and I guess we will find out more. But it was about time that they added more vehicles into Halo, because I've played. Everyone remembers growing up as a kid playing Halo multiplayer with your mates. I played, Halo 2, Halo 3, ODST, Reach, 4, and 4. 4 was my last one, so you can imagine how disappointing I was. But obviously, yeah, we've had 5 since then, which I heard basically was just drawing on a straight line in terms of quality. But no, it'll be nice to see how it innovates. And again, another game set for this year. Of course, Halo Infinite is going to be day-and-date Game Pass. It would be stupid if it wasn't. However, if they did mention it, I didn't write it down, so that's more on me than anyone else.
It's definitely Game Pass because I think it's pretty much standard now that Xbox first-party games are Game Pass.
Yeah. It's easy to say with regards to first-party. Third-party is a little more open there, but third-party is definitely there. Then a game that doesn't really faze me on the scale, but I know people will love it. Diablo 2 Resurrected was announced, due for release on 23rd of September 2021. It looks like one of the innovations will be 8-player co-op, which I imagine with friends will look very good.
Be fucking balmy.
Yeah, be proper great. I mean, Diablo 2 was the one with the Cowland, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
That Cowland with 8-player co-op, that will be the crazy one. That'll be the crazy one.
Yeah, definitely.
A bit of a surprise announcement. A Plague Tale Innocence is getting a sequel. Plague Tale Requiem, set for next year. Looks like they've grown up just a tiny bit. I've not actually played the first one because, again... no, I'm fairly certain A Plague Tale Innocence did come to PlayStation, didn't it?
Yeah, it was...
This one I didn't read Game Pass, so it's either it is coming to Game Pass and it's also going to come to console at some point. I can't imagine it would be a game Xbox exclusive, but they just announced 2022 on there. Another case of wanting to be in on the action. Far Cry 6 got announced for the 6th time this week, showing some more gameplay footage. It does look quite clear now that your player character is a female revolutionary, and it looks like you're with maybe a dad, a father figure, or an uncle figure there with you. Again, looks very good. I'm all over it. And again, 7th of October, another big game set for October release. Would it surprise me if Far Cry 6 came to Game Pass? Maybe. I don't know if 5 did when it came out. So if it didn't come out for 5,
definitely didn't.
I imagine this was one of those games, another one of those games which didn't get announced for Game Pass.
Yeah.
But yeah, look very good. Giancarlo Esposito's character looks very menacing. It'll be interesting to see how he goes. It looks like they're most definitely using cutscenes, which is something that, Watch Dogs Legion would have used a lot. Assassin's Creed used a lot, but it's something new to the Far Cry series in the sense that they're not first-person cutscenes. So I think it'll be a massive help. And again, we'll touch upon more with regards to what Far Cry 6 announced as well in the Ubisoft trailers, in their showcase a little bit later on. But overall, Far Cry 6 it's an exciting game. Of course, it was delayed from February through to October. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out when it gets released. What was then after that? We then had Slime Rancher 2.
Yay.
Slime Rancher 1+1, I guess. Didn't look much different. I've never played the first one. I'm sure the second one was fine. We then had a game. Really it didn't look much different from what I'd seen of footage on it. No. I'm sure they'll announce more details as it gets closer because that's due for next year. Later on this year was a game I was convinced was Steep 2, but was actually a game called Shredders. It was very chill. Put Churchill, the dog, in there, and you've got a bloody Churchill advert. He was just vibing. Looked very interesting. Again, with Riders Republic being around, how much does that need to do to stick out from Riders Republic? We'll wait and see. But we didn't get an announced date, just 2021. But I'm fairly certain that was the first time we'd seen that. Another game, Atomic Heart. The only game that didn't have a single date associated with it, not even a day, a month, or a year. It just had a funky song, and I spent the time watching the gameplay and thought, I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it was. That was definitely one of the craziest trailers I think I've seen so far in E3. It was.
Yeah.
Like, wow, but what am I looking at as well at the same time?
Exactly. I was like, and they were like, come and enjoy it, and I was like, I don't know what I'm meant to enjoy here. Moving on, we then got a game which I really, really like the look of, and I think this is definitely going to be one of those underrated games that people don't think about too much. Replaced. It was the side-scrolling adventure, the one where it kind of had like really realistic-looking backgrounds, but the characters, the enemies, your protagonist were all kind of pixelated and far further afield. Now, this looked really good. Not a fan of side-scrolling games normally, but I feel like this one is definitely, if it comes day and date with Game Pass, definitely something you would check out. Very much. I think this one's going to be underrated. I don't think people are going to think about this one that much, and it looks very good. It
reminded me a lot of a game called Katana Zero, which is a PC exclusive.
Yes.
Straight away I thought, is that a sequel? But obviously it's not. But it really did remind me of that sort of similar style with the pixelated characters, great looking backgrounds, and yeah, it does. It looks really interesting.
That's the thing as well. When you're not a PC gamer, you tend not to think about it too much. Obviously, what you're missing out on. But yeah, that'll be one to look forward to. We then briefly had a look at Grounded. Obviously, the game where it looks like it's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the game. Yeah. Introducing what's called the Shroom and Doom update. Apparently, one of their updates was sitting. And they made a big deal out of that because apparently sitting in this game was something that they really needed and missed. So sitting, pets, mushrooms, a spider brood mother that no one asked for, And then they even showed off the accessibility feature of Arachnophobia mode, which basically just turned the big scary spider into a lovely little, like 3 balls, basically, which looked very funny.
My favourite bit.
I know, it was very good.
Yeah,
They did that very well presented, actually, which is quite good.
Yeah.
And as we'll soon learn later on, knowing how to present things is the best part of you knowing how to present things on E3. But the Grounded update, the Shroom and Doom update due June 30th. We've then got an Among Us update for June 15th. 15 player lobbies. Even more chaos.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain Among Us isn't... I think that was more for PC, that announcement, because I don't think Among Us has come to consoles just yet.
No, they delayed it indefinitely, and I haven't seen anything that's changed or said about a release date, unless I've missed it.
Well, Among Us was at the... So when they did the... It wasn't Horizon. It was one of the State of Plays they announced that Among Us was coming to PS5. That's all I remember. Or that's the last update I saw of Among Us, but before this one. But I don't think that had a release date on it either, to be fair.
No, I think it was due to come to Xbox first because of it being on PC.
Yep, makes sense.
Xbox Game Pass.
Yep.
But I think they delayed it because they want crossplay in there or something. Maybe, I'm not sure.
Something that, yeah. I mean, crossplay with Among Us would be perfect. You know, how to do the typing as well is going to be a difficult one to handle on console as well, unless you've got some sort of voice to chat feature as well to ease time, or expand the processing time with regards to everything else. We then have a couple of quick updates. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes and Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, which at first I thought was just one title, but actually turned out to be 2. Another thing where no idea what I was watching. They showed 4 characters and then announced the game title. I'm not too sure if there were other Eiyuden Chronicles, and I'm probably butchering that title as well. We had Eiyuden Chronicle Rising set for 2022 and Chronicle 100 Heroes for 2023. We then had The Ascent due 29th of July. Age of Empires 4 got announced 28th of October 2021. We then got probably the funniest trailer from that, the Outer Worlds 2 announcement. Console exclusive, which again I would argue that those words means that potentially might be something seen in the future, considering PlayStation did get the Outer Worlds 1, so it'll be interesting to see if they get their hands on Outer Worlds 2, even if there is a bit of a delay on it. Flight Simulators getting a cross collaboration with Top Gun. Didn't see that coming, but the gameplay footage for Series X and Series S versions of Flight Simulator make me want to get an Xbox. It looks gorgeous. It looks amazing.
It's a stunning looking game.
It absolutely is. And I can't imagine, I'm not surprised that those games really struggled on the original consoles. The Xbox One X as well really struggled. So when it's looking like that, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Just 2 more announcements was made. So Forza Horizon 5. A game I've not unfortunately touched upon, but they finally announced that they were coming to Mexico. Which was the largest open world in a Horizon game. Looked very good. I'd love to play Forza Horizon. Unfortunately, I won't get the chance. But we, again, not having to wait long. 9th of November, that was announced for. So that'll keep the racing fans going, because, of course, we don't... for those who have adopted the next gen early... we don't really have much in the way of racing games at the moment. From what's been given to us. Of course, Gran Turismo is due at some point. Obviously, Forza was still being worked on, and they mentioned at this point there was a few games that they were working on, obviously, in their recap summary. Of course, they mentioned the Elder Scrolls 6. They mentioned the Forza series. They mentioned other games that are in development right now that they just didn't have the time to show, which I guess appreciates and acknowledges that everything's still going, and that they haven't forgotten anything, or they haven't announced that anything's been cancelled. And then they decided to close off their showcase with a game called Redfall, which was due for summer next year. It's a game by Arcane Studios. The words that they used to describe it before they started was open world shooter and Xbox exclusive. It's a 4-player shooter. It looks like it's definitely set in the United States because one of the characters went Massachusetts, and it kind of just looks like Left 4 Dead, but with vampires as opposed to zombies.
That was my first impression, yeah.
You know, it was a pre-rendered teaser. It didn't really show too much. They took a very comedic tone in its presentation of how it was displayed and how it was laid out, so it'll just be interesting to see how that rocks up. But yeah, they didn't really have much to show from us. I imagine this is what they are going to, or they're working on at the moment, whilst they're trying to get the kinks out of I can't remember the name of it now. Deathloop, that's it, because that's held by Arcane Studios as well. So this is, I imagine, their next project. So yeah, that was
Deathloop's a PlayStation exclusive as well, isn't it? So
yeah, that'll be a PlayStation exclusive. I imagine for about 12. Well, I think the contract is 12 months, and then it will go over. But there's always been discussion on whether or not they were delaying the game to minimise the number of months that they would do it. But again, we'll just have to wait and see on that. But that comes out September, October time, I think. So yeah, that was the Xbox showcase in a nutshell. Finishing off with Redfall, starting off with Starfield, which of course was always nice to see. Welcome on in. I hope you're doing very well as well. I did see you were streaming earlier on to discuss, or maybe watching more of a live reacts rather than a post discussion. But it's always great to see everyone jumping in on the fun this week. I hope you've had a good day and a lovely weekend, especially with your boating that you did yesterday as well, which was good. So yeah, overall that was a good performance. We thought we'd start off with Xbox because ultimately that one was that was the biggest one that has been announced basically. We will then rewind, go back in time to Thursday's kickoff live with Jeff Keighley, a part of the Summer Games Fest as opposed to E3, but definitely worth mentioning. So again, we'll just read through the games that they announced. Of course, there's one game on everyone's mind, which everyone wants to talk about, which we will talk about here. It was shown last. We're going to talk about it first. Elden Ring.
Yes, so excited for this. Again, it's another one that's been discussed frequently with myself, my friends. We've played through all the Souls games, Bloodborne, etc. So we were so excited to see actual gameplay, co-op confirmed. Just, yeah, it looked amazing. You know?
And not just co-op as well. They've announced 4-player co-op, which is I imagine that's the first time that's been done. Of course, I know there was always the invasion system with regards to Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Demon Souls, and the like. Would I be correct in saying this was the first time it was 4-player co-op as opposed to 2-player?
You could do 4-player in Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, but the problem was you incurred the wrath of potentially 2 invaders rather than 1. So you could summon 2 friends and only have 1 invader, but if you summoned a 3rd friend, then you could possibly get another invader.
So, and it's interesting as well because they have confirmed it is open world, which, as I've written down, is definitely a good experience for first timers with more than one co-op partner. It's getting a free next gen upgrade from PS4 to PS5 and Xbox One X and S to Xbox Series X and S. The biggest FromSoft game to date, with a seamless, interconnected open world. So it's almost like a cross between a Dark Souls game and a I got a very much a Zelda-y vibe to it, as well, in terms of just a more open, expansive world with closed-off places where the enemies will be. And they gave a release date, which I can't guarantee that it won't be delayed, because they've announced the 21st of January 2022. I'm very much looking forward to it. I've never been a fan of Dark Souls games, of the like of FromSoft. As some people will be happy to hear and know, I actually booted up Bloodborne for the first time ever today, and basically smashed my head in with a rake for 4 hours to finally get past not just the cleric beast but also Father Gascoigne. So hopefully I've now got until at least January to finish the game and maybe play a couple of others before we get to Elden Ring to give that a try. But yeah, very, very interested with that. That was obviously the biggest announcement with regards to it. There were other games in there. There was Tiny Tina's Wonderlands from Gearbox. Looks very exciting, separate from the Borderlands story. It's an isolated experience. There was no release date given at Kickoff Live, and I don't think there was any other announcement announced on any of the other times it was shown on the conference. No. I mean, it looked at a very early announcements. You know, there wasn't much in the way of gameplay. I'd imagine 2022, early 2023 is an announcement as a prediction, but I don't think that's coming this year at all. If they would have announced a date.
Yeah.
But it looks exciting, and we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. Metal Slug is getting a XCOM-esque remake, Metal Slug Tactics. Again, never played a Metal Slug game, so it's not something that's keen to me. But of course, XCOM games are very popular, so I'm sure people will jump into that.
I like XCOM.
We then had Hideo Kojima come on. I have 2 words to describe the conversation with Hideo Kojima: 9/11. He very much commented on that quite a lot to compare how the year had been with COVID. It was just a discussion that he had with Jeff Keighley. There wasn't really much in the way of their conversation. Obviously, just saying how they're all coping well at home and they're all doing well. But the main thing he announced, he did the Jeff Keighley thing where he went, oh, and one more thing, and that one more thing turned out to be a director's cut of Death Stranding, which didn't have a release date, which was coming soon to PS5. They only mentioned PS5 because, of course, Death Stranding is yet to port over to other consoles, as far as I'm aware. But I had a funny point to make about this. Hideo Kojima was the director of Death Stranding, so surely the original is the director's cut. It doesn't make much sense in the grand scheme of things. You can't call it a director's cut if you're sure the first game was a director's cut, but it looked very jokey, Metal Gear-esque. He had a box of oranges that apparently was the oranges from that particular brand, was also the same brand as the Metal Gear Solid 2 oranges, which is where that whole thing came from. It looked exciting. I played about 20 hours of Death Stranding. Didn't, sort of bounced off in the end, but it's a very chill game, rather minus the battles with blood whales and weird alien creatures. We then had Jurassic World Evolution 2 announced by Jeff Goldblum. Don't know how Jeff Keighley managed to get these people onto this show, but he must have bribed them because there were a lot of celebrities for this one.
They ain't got much else to do, have they, I suppose?
That is true. From all I could see on the trailer, it was Jurassic World 1 and then some. It was just more. Coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, i.e. all of the Xboxes, and PC, but not Switch, which makes me think I'm sure Jurassic Park Evolution or Jurassic World Evolution wasn't on the Nintendo Switch in the first place. So it didn't come as a surprise, but I just thought with that sort of game, a touchscreen would be quite good to use as a controller. So it'll be interesting if that comes.
Port the first one over to Switch eventually, but I don't think it came out on Switch on launch.
No. Yeah, definitely something they worked on afterwards. I imagine a similar sort of idea will come from that. We then had a brief announcement of an MMO RPG called Lost Ark heading to the West in late 2021. Didn't have much to say on this. It looks like an alright game. I've never been really played an MMORPG to the extent of, like your RuneScapes and your World of Warcraft and stuff like that. But I'm sure it'll be another one that will be picked up by a lot of fans over here. Another little look at Among Us. Of course, this show was essentially the first one. So when we mentioned the 15-player update, that was only just announced today. The other updates that Among Us announced was there was a new hide-and-seek mode. There were new roles, colours, and more. They even had a funny edit of the new map by putting up a really closely zoomed picture of the map and say, this is all we can show you. So I'm sure someone on the internet has gone freeze, expand, and got a nice clear picture of that map on there. They then showed Salt and Sacrifice, which is the sequel to Salt and Sanctuary, which one of the edits had online co-op coming 2022 for PS4 and PS5. We then had, and this is an announcement that feeds into the next one, but they had Koch Media. They had a brief announcement along with a sizzle reel, so to speak of, just to say that they are working on 12 new games, including a new Payday game and a new Painkiller game. What they've called it is they're publishing all the games under a brand called Prime Matter. Is what they were referring to, which we won't talk too much about Koch now because that'll be coming up in a minute. But a new Payday game is always good. Of course, Payday 2 came out absolute years ago, 2014, 2015, I imagine, for the PS4 and Xbox. And then new Painkiller game. Of course, Painkiller hasn't had a remake or hasn't had a sequel since it came out in that was Xbox 360 generation, if I recall.
Yeah, I remember playing the original Painkiller on PC. I've probably still got the game case somewhere.
Yeah. They then had, and again, I put this more down to bullet points because, of course, not a lot of these came up in terms of having a lot of information with regards to it. But then we showed games Sable, 2 Point Campus, a second map was coming to Escape from Tarkov. We had a very strange Stranger Things cross with Smite collaboration, which I couldn't have seen coming a mile away. That Left 4 Dead style shooter that I was referring to was Anacrusis, which is made by the same developers, if I recall. Again, if someone in the comments is happy to tell me that I'm wrong, please do. We always want to make sure we're giving the right information. Rather than getting a Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, we got an announcement of Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt, which was a battle royale mode for the game, something that was not asked for, no one expected, and no one really wants at all. We had Tales of Arise, Fast and Furious vehicles in Rocket League, Sky, Children of Light. We then had a brief look at some character reveals for Overwatch 2. Again, none of these really sort of screamed out as something, that could have been a blog post sort of thing. Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, Endless Dungeon, Near Automata's 2B is going to be in Fall Guys. Again, that was not a collaboration I expected in Heart in a Mile.
No.
Somehow it works in terms of the appearance, but I'm sure that will cost a little bit of money to get that outfit. I'm sure people have them. We then had Deviation Game Studio being announced with a partnership with PlayStation. I'll briefly go back because I would have talked about it earlier, but I do want to touch upon it. The game Planet of Lana, due for release in 2022. Did you get a chance to have a look at this? This game was the one that is entirely hand painted.
Yeah, the art style is beautiful.
Yeah.
The only thing I always worry about with games like that is whether the gameplay is going to actually live up to the graphic style.
Indeed. I mean, that's the thing. The gameplay, or in terms of the art style, that really, really grabbed me, which is something that it doesn't normally do so. But it really did grab me in the sense of it looked beautiful, it looked gorgeous, it looked like something I haven't played before and would more than happy play. Definitely a game where I'd imagine if it was coming to Game Pass, that would be one that you would want to try. But I can't imagine you'd be picking that up for anything more than 15 quid on the PlayStation Store when it comes out.
No.
Very much indie, but also one very much to look forward to. We then had some gameplay footage of Evil Dead. Not much of Ash, but just definitely of Evil Dead. That looked gory. That looked proper good.
Popular franchise again, so...
Yeah, getting the extra bits in. And then their last announcement that they had from this particular performance, obviously it was the second to last, I should say, because the last was, of course, Elden Ring. But they did also show a little bit of extra gameplay trailer for Back 4 Blood. So overall, I thought that show or that conference was definitely a good one. It was brief. Watching it on Thursday night. The beginning started really well. The end finished really well. The middle, my God, the middle was. If you needed to make a cup of tea or have a nap, I've phased out in the middle and had to go back and read what had been announced. They were talking about Sable a lot there. It was quite weird. But yeah, I mean, it redeemed itself. Good beginning, a good end. It's just the middle bit was just a bit off, but overall, I'd say it was a good start to the week that we know of E3 without it being considered E3. And I did feel that with regards to Elden Ring, there was really only going to be one place, because if that was going to be announced at the Microsoft one, I think a lot of people would be gutted in terms of PlayStation's camp, because they would be concerned because it wouldn't be showing as PlayStation. I think Elden Ring will come out on everything. I don't think there'll be an exclusivity deal. I feel like it's big enough that it'll come to a PlayStation and Xbox at the same time. I don't think it'll be Game Pass, because I don't think the From Software have a good relationship with PlayStation, and I don't think they would do something like that to warrant the smite of PlayStation, so to speak of, given the fact that they've got a very comfortable arrangement right now without having to worry. But yeah, overall it was good to see, and obviously a few games from there were quite easy to pick out and enjoy. You know, something that we'll be enjoying in the future. Not much dates announced during that performance, but I don't think it needed them, to be fair. We then move on to the following morning, the Koch Media presentation. Now, I watched all of our 20 minutes of this before I tuned out. Now, Koch Media, a lot of people have been incorrectly pronouncing it as Koch Media, which ultimately by the end of the 2-hour stream probably seemed a little bit more accurate than Koch. This is the company, you know, among Koch Media is Deep Silver, you know, the developers of Saints Row, Metro 2033 and Dead Island.
Yeah.
So they must have read their brief and gone, right, let's do everything that we shouldn't do. This was one of the most boring conferences I've seen in such a long time. I mean, yeah, the fact that Kind of Funny's reaction stream to it was, don't watch this. You know, they basically, the purpose of the stream, I feel like the stream was 12 months too young. It should have been gestating until next E3, to be honest. But we will briefly touch upon what we've got, and along with a brief description, because ultimately I didn't really have too much on there. The first of their games is a King's Bounty 2, which is a high fantasy RPG / tactical strategy, coming 24th of August 2021. Another game to chuck into August, of course. You know, most of the announcements came in from Prime Matter, which is their publishing label. They announced that they're in the early stages of development for a Painkiller sequel, which we've touched upon already. Kingdom Come Deliverance is getting a Switch port. You know,
never a fan of Kingdom, but you know, I know some people are. They like it, but
I got into a fight with the town drunk. I lost, and then I punched him again, thinking I was going to get a second chance. Ended up getting killed by a guard. So I was like, wow, I've returned that game very quickly. Yes, we then got announced Final Form, a sci-fi FPS. Dolmen, a hardcore game inspired by Dark Souls and Bloodborne, plus Mass Effect and Dead Space, in which it's a game where you save rather than kill aliens, which is interesting as a concept. Scars Above, a HP Lovecraft-inspired third-person action horror game. Encased, which is an isometric sci-fi RPG with decision-based storytelling. Echoes of the End, a fantasy RPG. The Last Oricru, which is an action RPG set in a far future fantasy world with co-op play and story decisions in story, because of course decisions in story were the key word here. And then last but not least was their big announcement of Payday 3. Very early development. They announced it as a 2023 release. Where you travel across the US. So kind of more of the same from what we had from Payday 2, just bringing it up for a generation. But overall, I didn't really want to pay too much attention to this because it's quite clear the developers didn't either. It was very much a podcast rather than, you know, a lot of these announcements could have been a blog post as opposed to anything else, rather than showing us 2 hours of them talking to someone. You could have condensed this into about 30 minutes in a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
So we'll just move briefly on from Koch Media. Now, we've already spoken with regards to pretty much all of the details with regards to Battlefield 2042. So we won't, obviously, the only extra details that were announced on the reveal, which I think took place on Wednesday before, was that some of the multiplayer mode, there is going to be a multiplayer mode with 128 players in PS5 and Xbox Series. A point that they have specifically mentioned is not a Battle Royale, which has been done in. Perixia, welcome on in. Good evening. Hope you're doing very well. Yep, we've just briefly finished talking about Sit Down's favourite studio, Koch Media, the most boring stream going. Royal Wife is also in the chat. Welcome on in.
Hey, Royal Wife.
So we had 128 players in a game mode on PS5 and Xbox Series. We also had 64 players on PS4 and Xbox One as well. And then there was also... They were announcing a closed beta. If you pre-ordered the game, you get a closed beta. No start date at the moment. Obviously, it is pretty much confirmed that it's £70 for the PS5 version. And even more interestingly, there is no next-gen upgrade. So if you buy it for PS4 or Xbox One, you do not get an upgrade to PS5 or a Series X, which very much surprised me, given the fact that every game has a next-gen upgrade nowadays. Obviously, coming out on launch, they say it's a free update, so very much surprising.
But this is EA.
This is EA we're talking about, so it doesn't surprise us that much in the slightest. We are doing very well, Perixia. Hot and bothered, to say the least, what with the weather as it has been this weekend, but we are all doing well and chugging along. We're over halfway through the lovely prepared document that we had for the day. We've then moved on to one of my favourite conferences of the week so far, which was Ubisoft, the Ubisoft Forward. Now, definitely something in which you would argue that wasn't necessarily a press conference, so to speak of, but more just one of their broadcasts in regards to games. With, of course, the big news was Rainbow Six Quarantine getting a rebrand and a re-release as Rainbow Six Extraction, where we had 15 minutes look in depth at this. Now, what were your thoughts on the footage that we saw on there?
If I'd have seen it and not realised that it was Rainbow Six before, I probably wouldn't have guessed it, because it looked very, very different to anything I've ever seen from Rainbow Six.
Yeah.
But interesting. I think it's about time they went with something a little bit different, I suppose. I know Rainbow Six Siege has been very successful after sort of having a bit of a fail, and then they sort of rebranded it and redid it, and it's been going 6 years now, which is fantastic. It's good to see games supported for that long. But yeah, I'm curious, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that you mentioned Siege, because of course the Siege, it very much looks like the lessons that they've learned with regards to Rainbow Six Siege is in this. It's 3-player co-op. It's very much Siege mechanics in terms of some of the operators from Siege are actually in this game as well, so it almost does feel like a spiritual sequel.
Just one thing. Sorry, could we talk to Perry about EA and Sims?
EA and Sims. I mean, did we have an announcement with regards to Sims this weekend, or is it just in the sense that the Sims is always very much, all of the updates are still like 12, 15 quid even on sale, and there's about 40 of them to get everything in the game you'd have to win the lottery?
I think that about sums it up in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, for every lesson that EA learns, i.e. showing off the Battlefield 2042 footage and having a good time, and also announcing that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is getting a free next-gen upgrade coming later this month. For all the goods that they do, they then have The Sims, which is a money sink, absolute money sink, to get everything in there. So, they are learning their lesson, and they are doing better ever since Star Wars Battlefront 2. But yeah, there's still those parts in. And again, the no next-gen upgrade was quite a surprising update and surprising kick in the teeth as well, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
Back onto Rainbow Six Extraction. What I quite liked was they referred to them as Archeons, the sludge-like enemies. And they showed in the footage what looked like an apex, or they referred to it as an apex. It was basically Liquid Predator. Like, it even looked like Predator with his mask in there as well.
Yeah.
It did look interesting, and I probably will jump in, and I won't have to wait long for it because the release date of Rainbow Six Extraction has finally been announced as the 16th of September, which at the moment doesn't seem like a busy day on September, but in typical Ubisoft fashion, another game coming out just 5 days later, which I'm just going to skip over Rocksmith Plus and I'll come back to that in a second, is Riders Republic. A game where we saw a lot of gameplay footage, which is always good, as opposed to the... I couldn't tell if some of it was gameplay, some of it was pre-rendered with Rainbow Six Extraction. I didn't think all of it was gameplay. No. But we had lots of gameplay showing off the hub, or home base as we'd like to call it. It showed all the different traversal methods. So we had mountain bike, wingsuit, jet bikes, jet suits, parachuting, snowboarding. And yet somehow in their gameplay, they still showed off someone doing a paragliding, stopping off at a mountain, and then marking it as a landmark on the map. So somehow, in a game about exploration, mountain biking, and all this action-adventure, somehow Ubisoft have still managed to put a go-to icon on map feature in there.
Yeah.
But it looks very good. I mean, as I said, we've got the shredders that was announced today in the Xbox show. In this game, you've also got snowboarding for Riders Republic. It'll be very interesting to see how those two come up against each other because for once, with a racing game like an off-road thing, Riders Republic has really grabbed me, and I will 100% be on there on day one. It just looks like so much fun and so much excitement there as well.
Yeah, it's again, it's not my sort of thing in the sense, but it. You can see when something looks fun, and obviously they had the demo with 50-odd, possible players, computer, I don't know, and all sorts of the different traversal methods.
Yeah, like mass races where you saw them in the jet suits and it looked fucking insane, basically.
It really did, and, it's certainly one to look out for sure. And, fair play to Ubisoft for trying something a little bit different from what they used to, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. We wouldn't expect this from Ubisoft. I think they've learned, they will have learned lessons over the years because, of course, from Ubisoft's side, the only real games that we've had with vehicle mechanics in is The Crew and The Crew 2. So, they'll have learned their lessons from there, I imagine. We'll then briefly go back to Rocksmith Plus, a game I didn't expect to be announced, although I wouldn't really call it a game. The official word that they used to describe it was subscription service. Which essentially is a guitar learning game. PC closed beta is available from today. Or, well, not from today, from after their show that they finished yesterday, so it'll be on today on their website. Has a large selection of songs on launch and has a Rocksmith workshop, as they call it, which allows people to make their own versions of the songs that have been licensed by Rocksmith. It looks very good, but the word subscription service took me right out of it. In this day and age, we already have so many subscription services, not just within games. Even if you just look at an Xbox player, they have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which I think also includes Game Pass Gold or games with gold in there as well. That's like £15 a month or $15 a month. That will only get worse with time. You've got PlayStation with PlayStation Plus. You've got Nintendo Switch with their Nintendo Switch Online, which, okay, I'll argue that's not too bad because that's about £3 a month. Or £32 I pay for the year, which isn't that bad at all, considering that's for the family with me and my other half as well.
Yeah, there's good options there.
They then had, after the Rocksmith Plus, they also did briefly show some details with regards to Rainbow Six Siege. As you said, it's 6 years they've been supporting it now, so they just showed some brief Year 6 details. They then showed off a brief look at their live service games, as they called them. So Trackmania is receiving a track editor mode. The Crew 2 is getting some more cars. Couldn't name any of the cars for you because I don't know cars very well.
It's still going, it surprises me.
Yeah, I thought the Crew 2 servers were getting shut down later this year, so imagine my surprise that it's still running apparently. Yeah. Brawlhalla is getting a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles update. Now, I've never played Brawlhalla, but they actually did look pretty cool playing as those. We then had a brief look at Watch Dogs Legion Bloodlines DLC, which also includes the long-awaited arrival of Aidan Pierce, the protagonist from Watch Dogs 1, and Wrench, the LED-wearing mask user from Watch Dogs 2. Again, it's something I need to jump back into because unfortunately, because of how buggy the platinum was for Watch Dogs, I basically had to delete my save, start again. So I only have 2 characters right now. So I need to go back, play that again, or when I'm off stream and just enjoying life, to get all my good characters back, basically, which is a bit of a shame. They then had announced, it was very funny, these words, Tom Clancy's Breakpoint is getting a feedback-based update. A feedback-based update. It just... I know Tom Clancy's Breakpoint was basically dead on arrival the moment it launched, but it's just funny hearing the words feedback-based update as if anyone's actually playing that game still.
And I think it doesn't sort of specify anything really, does it? Because that is such a wide net to cast. It's like, well, that they might as well have said there's an update coming because it's exactly the same thing. It doesn't really specify what they're actually going to do to the game.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
it's a strange one, that.
It is, and following that as well, they also announced that obviously this year is the 20th anniversary of the Tom Clancy games. So to tease something soon, or maybe they said along the lines of maybe we'll see something soon, which means obviously yes, they will see something. It just depends on exactly what they're going to offer.
Probably.
We then had a bit of an expansive look at a music video, which just happens to be advertising Just Dance 2022, coming on the 4th of November for all consoles. You will not find me playing that game or streaming that game, but I'm not going to lie. The more I heard that song, the more I thought, this song's pretty darn good. Kind of a pop-in beat to it as well, so...
Definitely.
I might not play the game, but I might have it on my phone, listening to it every so often. But I wouldn't know. That was the time I went and made a cup of tea. We then had a look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now they went into a little bit more detail on here. Two or three of these, definitely one of these points is something I have to mention was hilarious. So they basically started off by saying that the Assassin's Creed Valhalla launch was their biggest launch to date, with over 300 million raids and 100 million buildings being built in the Ravensthorpe, which is the town that you built up, your little settlement. They didn't really announce a date, so I'm assuming this is from today, but you can also get a free Basim outfit. Basim is the character who was the assassin in the game. Now, one of the new updates they're announcing to the game is that one-handed swords are being added to the game. I've got the platinum for this game, and I didn't know that they didn't have one-handed swords. I just assumed they already had them. But apparently they're putting them in.
I did not know either. I mean, I briefly touched on the game 5-6 hours, but I wouldn't have guessed. I
have 103 hours clocked in on that game to get the platinum, and I can't remember there being a one-handed sword. So apparently to hear that they're putting them in, I thought, wow, okay. They then just briefly mentioned, obviously, the Wrath of the Druids DLC, the first DLC in Ireland, was released a couple of weeks ago. Showed off a little bit of a first look at the Siege of Paris DLC coming later on this year. The Assassin's Creed Discovery Tour, which is a good educational tool, is releasing for Valhalla this fall, which looks kind of immersive. Obviously, you never get trophies or anything like that for those sort of games. It's just things that you might have... it's a good learning tool to learn about the certain things that you see on those games as well. In terms of where it's set and all these famous locations. And then they also announced that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is going to be one of the first games that they support into their second year. So it basically definitely announces that there isn't going to be an Assassin's Creed this year. They originally the season pass had an update for 2 DLCs. It looks like they teased a third DLC, which is somehow related to Odin, which will be interesting to look at.
Very curious about that one.
It is very, very curious to see because, of course, it's very... We've always had, for Origins, we had 2 updates. For Odyssey, we had 2 updates. For Valhalla, we had 2 updates, and now we've got a third one. So it's clear they're wanting to take a little bit of a break whilst they've been working on some other projects and support it in the form of DLC, which I think is good because it is... Assassin's Creed Valhalla is one of my favourite games from the newer series, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops as it goes on. then after that we had a brief look at films and TV. Again, won't touch too much upon this, but they basically just reminded everyone that Mythic Quest exists on Apple TV, and that the series finale is later on this week or next week. And there's also a film coming out this month called Werewolves Within, coming out on the 25th. It kind of looks like a comedy, but they showed a trailer for it and it looked alright. But I mean, no one comes and watches a game conference or a game presentation to learn about films, as you will learn. Gearbox. But yes, it was a brief little refresher before they jumped into Far Cry 6. Now, what they showed off compared to the previous one, obviously we saw a lot of gameplay cinematics. Now, what they showed at the Ubisoft Forward was a better look at Giancarlo Esposito's character. However, it also, the cutscene, again, showed another cutscene. The cutscene was very... If you've played Watch Dogs Legion, the cutscene doesn't look too out of place. Because I think it very much looks the same as Watch Dogs Legion in terms of those graphics. But it was basically a nice little rendition of a paragraph about what he does and why he does it, and people being farmers and stuff like that, which obviously we always see when it comes to video game Far Cry games and Far Cry villains, is they've always got a plan. And weirdly enough, the post-launch plans, which they announced for Far Cry 6, involves said villains. It involves playing as the villains of Far Cry 3, 4, and 5. So Vars Montenegro from Far Cry 3, definition of insanity. Pagan Min from Far Cry 4, the blonde-haired Benedict Cumberbatch clone, and then Joseph Seed, the father from Far Cry 5. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how they do that with regards to their angles on those games. And then it also announced that anyone who has the season pass for Far Cry 6 will receive a copy of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Yay.
I don't know who asked for that. It's not a remake. It's not a reboot. It's the same game. They're just re-releasing it, basically. It doesn't make any sense. No one asked for it, so I don't know why they're... I just don't understand. We've... Valhalla, we got Assassin's Creed 3 remastered, which also came with Liberation. The previous one, we got another, remastered versions. It's just like, what's going on? So I don't know why, but Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, a game I finished in 4 hours, is being released alongside the season pass, which is a bit weird.
I didn't play it that long.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Far Cry 6, I'll definitely jump in. I'm totally interested in it. I'll be playing it. I've got the platinum for Far Cry 5. I need to go back and try and get it for 4 and 3, or 3 Classic Edition, I should say. Then we got the first foray of Nintendo into the press conference. Mario vs. Rabbids, the game that no one wanted in the first place, the XCOM version, is getting a sequel, Sparks of Hope. And I have one thing to comment on this, because I've not played one before, so obviously. Sit down, you might have some better opinions on this. But Rabid Rosalina is definitely a vibe. She was very non-plus.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing was that it actually leaked about 4 hours before Ubisoft's conference, so it was as if Nintendo thought, well, we're not going to give them the glory of having us exclusive in their conference, we'll just, swish it out there before. But yeah, I mean, the first game was, it was completely out of fucking nowhere. I mean, Nintendo doing a collaboration with a company as big as Ubisoft was a massive thing, and the game itself was a decent XCOM clone. And I'd say that as an XCOM player, it was really nice. So I'm interested to see what mechanics they add to the new one.
Yeah. I mean, I've not played the first one, so I don't really have much thoughts on it. I did think the presentation was very clean. I did note it just said Switch exclusive, as if that was a good thing. I'm assuming it's akin to letting in an abandoned puppy off the street. No one really wants it, but Nintendo is happy to have it. And the final announcement of Ubisoft, a game that looks absolutely incredible. It's the Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. 2022 release, no date, no season, just says 2022. What are your thoughts on Avatar?
I'm probably gonna get, well, if we had an audience, I'd probably get booed, but there was no gameplay, and apparently it's first person, so straight away I was sort of like, okay, but obviously the cutscene itself and being a fan of Avatar, it just looked absolutely gorgeous and
Yeah.
so exciting to see finally that hopefully we'll get a decent game, which the movie certainly deserves. And with the sequels coming out as well, it's not a bad move. You know what I mean? It's going to be in the news. It's going to be in people's minds. So yeah, I'm very curious. I just need to see more. I think that's the problem at the moment, especially gameplay.
Oh yeah, I mean, all we've seen so far was, a brief look at the world of Avatar again. Obviously, a very beautiful place. The humans are back by the look of it. I assume this will have a simultaneous release with the film due next year as well. To keep it in the loop. First person doesn't bother me too much because I didn't play. I went to Walt Disney World in 2019 before the pandemic, and went on the Avatar Flight of Passage ride. And I've never been blown away by a ride so much in my life by that. So if that even just replicates a 10% of that experience, I would be very happy. And it looks like they did learn their lesson with explosive ammos. So as I say, checkmate humans on that one. But yeah, announced next gen and PC only, which I'm glad that some companies are taking the decision to say that they aren't releasing for the previous gen, because of course, when you look at when you announce a game for 2022, you have to think to yourself, if I've announced it for 2022, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, if I release after November, those games will have been 2 years old by that point already. And so you, at some point, you do have to start to consider, especially for a company like Ubisoft, who aren't the developers of that console, that they will start to consider phasing them out, for previous games as well.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, they finished off with Avatar's Frontiers and Pandora with the typical one more thing. It was a very good. I personally felt that the Ubisoft press conference or the Ubisoft Forward was very well presented, one of the best presented of the night, and it was just very exciting to see what they had plans. I didn't really feel like they were missing anything from Ubisoft, nothing particularly that they had announced in the past that we hadn't actually seen, so it was quite good.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, after the Ubisoft Forward went on, we then had a brief break before we jumped straight into Gearbox. So the Gearbox conference or showcase, it was 30 minutes long. I'd like my 30 minutes back, please. Now you've got to remember,
that was the tour of the Borderlands set as well.
Yeah, we want to watch a gameplay reveal of games from these developers for a gaming conference. So to spend almost half of your conference being on the set of the Borderlands movie, no real reveals. He had a brief chat with Kevin Hart in a really oversized coat, obviously hiding the outfit that he was meant to be wearing, I imagine. Why didn't we see the outfits? Why didn't we see the character reveals? Why do we need to talk to Eli Roth, who really doesn't need to be in? I mean, Randy Pitchford shouldn't be. You just know that he wanted to be in this as much as possible because it was 30 minutes and we spent at least 10 minutes with Randy. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, for the half of the conference that they spent talking about the Borderlands movie, the other half they talked about spending about Homeworld 3. A game I've not seen, I've not heard of. I don't know what it's about, but every other trailer was Homeworld 3.
Yeah, I know of the Homeworld series, and it's not one of those you said if a game series is coming back, you'd be sort of, to me anyway, I'd be that excited about it. So yeah, it was a bit underwhelming.
I mean, realistically, the Gearbox presentation was an announcement of things that had already been announced. So we saw Tiny Tina's Wonderlands again, which again they this one they did give an early 2022 announcement because I think Tiny Tina's Wonderland didn't have too much in the way of a date in the kickoff live. They've referred to it as a standalone game set in a fantasy world, similar to the Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep DLC from Borderlands 2. I've played about 6 hours of Borderlands 1. I've never played 2 or 3. I have been meaning to go back and play it, so it'll be nice to see that vibe because, of course, Tiny Tina is definitely a fan favourite.
Yes, she certainly is.
A game I didn't mention previously, but was already revealed at Kickoff Live, was Tribes of Midgar, which we didn't really see much in the way of new details. It's sort of like a life management sim, sort of half top down. Similar sort of diagonal view. There's big giants that will come and wreck your shit. Nothing special there. And I guess what you could only refer to as their big announcement that hadn't been announced was that Godfall's getting a PS4 downgrade. Now, I mean, where do you start with this? It's announced on the 10th of August 2021. There are more updates coming to the game. How often does a game get downgraded?
Yeah, I must admit, when you put in the document about it, I thought, well, I can't remember a game that's come out on a previous gen after it's been released on next gen.
Yeah.
So, and
you always innovate up. This has got to be, and I'm fairly certain most people have talked about it, one of the first times ever that an exclusive game for the next gen has been downgraded as opposed to upgraded.
Absolutely. And I don't think it was that successful anyway, because I know it did have a lot of problems.
It was the problem in the sense that it was a £30 game masquerading as a £70 game. We'd see footage of stock shelves after the games got revealed, and you would literally find that all of the games would be sold out, but Godfall would have all of its stock there because the gameplay footage just looked average. I'd be interested in it. I might give it a go, but only when it's on sale or if I can get it as a rental, because no one's playing the game. So I understand why they've decided to downgrade it to try and get more people through the door. I wonder what and where they've sacrificed things to bring it down to PS4, given the fact that they are also coupling it with a new update as well, both a free update and a DLC update by the look of it. But overall, I mean, the fact that this was the only announcement that wasn't already revealed, except maybe Homeworld 3, it was a very boring conference. They tried to be edgy with the 60s travel video vibe to the presentation in between the cutscenes. It was alright, but I wouldn't scream home about it. Essentially, we've got one more presentation to talk about, which wasn't one I touched upon because, I mean, ultimately at this point, this was going on at like midnight our time, but this was IGN's Summer of Gaming. Now, again, there are a few points in which I'll just sort of briefly touch upon things that we've already talked about. Again, we had another look at Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, where they had, weirdly enough, in the IGN Summer of Gaming details, they announced more details about Gearbox's Tiny Tina Wonderlands than Gearbox's own press conference. In this one, they talked about loot, weapons, gear, things that wasn't touched upon, and it was just a pre-rendered cinema, teaser trailer in all of the other previous views. Doki Doki Literature Club is getting a expanded version. Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. Okay. No need to expand on that much more.
Yeah, it's a popular game, but not for me personally.
Yeah, not a sequel, not an expanded version. Not a sequel, not any add-ons. It's just an expanded version of the original.
Yeah.
We then had the announcement of World War Z Aftermath, which is the enhanced upgrade, 4K 60 frames per second for next gen. Might have to jump back into it now. But they've announced new characters, a new melee system, new enemies, and a first-person mode as well.
That one really ticked my interest because I played it with friends not so long ago, actually, when it came down to £8. I can't remember if I've seen whether the actual upgrade you have to pay for, or whether it's a free.
They didn't touch upon it too much. I would hope, given the game, that it would be a free next-gen upgrade, but we'll just... I'll see if I can find out some more information about that and get back to you on that one. Okay. We then had a couple of games that I'm not really too sure too much about. So Audio Clash Battle of the Bands, which looked like a sort of weird mobile game-looking game, coming to Steam Early Access in Q3 2021. Core Keeper, which is a 2D base building / sandbox game, coming to PC. Bramble the Mountain King, which is a side-scrolling horror platformer from Dimfrost. Survival Machine. This one actually did look quite interesting. So it's a co-op survival zombie apocalypse game. Comes out next year on Steam. And what you're doing is your home base is similar to Mortal Engine. So it's a town that moves. on wheels,
Yeah.
which is quite good.
Oh, I did see that actually.
Yeah,
thinking
this one
about
actually
it,
did
yeah.
look quite
It
exciting. This
looked
was probably one of
really,
the ones I was looking forward to on this one.
yeah, I was very curious about that. Quite cool.
Yeah. We then had Blacktail, which is by Parasite Studios, which you play as a young Baba Yaga. No idea who that one is, but it was a first-person action adventure. We then announced some new Arcade One cabinets. These are sort of arcade cabinets that you can buy, bring them to your home. Normally about $300-$400. I think the Street Fighter one was announced as $600 for some reason. But that was Turtles in Time, Street Fighter, and a Miss Pac-Man cross with Gallagher box. Again, I've never seen any of these. I'm sure it's quite nice, but who knows?
Yeah, I imagine Street Fighter would probably appeal to a few people of the, that
Oh yeah,
generation.
traditional one is
Generations
very
before,
good. Yeah,
probably,
yeah. We then had Mortal Shell announce a DLC for the Virtuous Cycle. Death's Gambit Afterlife, which is an expanded edition of Death's Gambit, coming to the Switch this year. Didn't see too much into that. We then had Big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions, which is a game set in the Creed/Rocky universe. That actually did look quite entertaining. Coming to PS4, Xbox One, Switch and PC September 3rd. One that we're going to take a little bit of a break on and talk about is Forgotten City. Now, Forgotten City is a murder mystery game taking place in ancient Rome. But for those eagle-eyed viewers, it's based on a Skyrim mod. So it's actually originally it was a mod on PC for Skyrim. They've actually remodeled it with all new designs. Similar, you can still see the Skyrim feel to it, even if it is set in ancient Rome. But that actually released on the 28th of July, so not too long to go. It is releasing PC, PS4 and 5, Xbox and Switch. So it's got to be, for me, one of the first times a mod for a game. Obviously, yes, we know about DayZ and we know about Arma 3, those sort of things, and PUBG. These are all mods to certain things. But, this has got to be one of the first times that one of those modded games has come to PS4 or 5. Especially a game that's based on a Skyrim mod as well.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff that the modding community does with Bethesda games in general, your Skyrim, your Elder Scrolls Oblivion, your Fallout games, is quite incredible. The amount of work that goes into these. You're talking years in some cases of the project.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, I mean, very much passion projects for the fans. They want to get in on the ground floor. They want to do certain things, and it looked really entertaining as well. It's definitely a game I'm going to jump into. Forgotten City, 28th of July. So again, just over a month and a half from now. We then had Unbound Worlds Apart, which is a Metroidvania game coming to the 28th of July. Splitgate coming to Xbox and PS5, already on PC at the moment. Black Skylands is coming to Steam Early Access on the 9th of July. Skate Bird, which is a skateboarding bird game. Comes as no surprise to hear that it's a Game Pass Day 1 game, eh? It's the only game on that list that was Xbox, PC, and Switch, but not PlayStation. It's essentially a skateboarding bird, and I swear to God, if they have not named one of the characters Tony Hawk, and he happens to be a hawk, that would be perfect. Or Bob Birdquist. We then had Ollie Weld as a brief announcement. A Sherlock Holmes sort of reboot sort of thing from Frogworld. 2 Point Campus got another trailer there, of course, shown initially at Kickoff Live. It did look quite entertaining from the makers of 2 Point Hospital. It did look very, very entertaining. Sifu, the sort of karate samurai, karate sort of PS5 game, got another gameplay trailer. Streets of Rage 4 is getting a DLC. We've also got Martha is Dead. I've written I've written Martha is Dead, and then on the other page I had the rest of the thing because it was like, well, I can't just say that and say what the game is. It's a horror mystery that's set in the closing days of World War II in Italy. Now the story concept on its own is enough for me to go, okay, that's interesting. I'll be intrigued to see what that is.
Yeah.
We then have Inculinati, which is a strategy game that is drawn in the style of medieval manuscripts. Like, who on earth thinks of these things? Like, that's such a niche audience that I would have never thought about, basically.
No, exactly.
We then had again a few other sort of light. Sorry, you can tell we're an hour and 49 minutes into the stream, can't you? We then had Disciples Liberation, which is a dark fantasy strategy RPG. That actually looked quite alright. Unpacking, which is a puzzle game. Broken Pieces, a psychological thriller mystery set in 1993. Wild West Dynasty, which was a management and a life sim set in the Wild West, which, again, looks a bit entertaining, which is quite nice. Chernobylite, a survival game set in Chernobyl. It was horror sci-fi with FPS, very Metro-esque, so almost more Metro than Metro. I mean, obviously, it's more of a Metro 2033 style game than Metro Exodus. Also, very much, given the fact that it's also set in Chernobyl, very much like Stalker 2 as well, which will be interesting to see how that goes between those two. Haunted Space, which was a space combat game with cosmic horror elements in which you fight gods in space. The concept is there.
Interesting.
Arborea, a Souls-like roguelike game. All those lovely, lovely words.
That sounds rough.
Returnal.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, last but not least, from the IGN Summer of Gaming conference was A Steel Rising, which is an alternative history game set in the French Revolution. It's developed by the same creators of Greedfall on the console game, like the pirate sort of RPG. Another one. It seemed interesting. It seemed quite good. Something that I would definitely tune into to check out. Again, I haven't touched upon Greedfall, but I know that Greedfall either already has or is getting a PS5 update. So that'll be a good time to jump in when that comes in. But overall, that was that was most of the announcements from the Summer of Gaming, and as a whole, most of the announcements from the actual E3 to date prior to this stream. Of course, as we went live, we unfortunately had to kind of try and watch Square Enix, so I'll double check, see if we missed any announcements and touch upon that next time around. On Monday, we have... Who have we got? So in terms of the announcements that we've got, Monday we've got the Verizon Intellivision Take-Two Interactive Panel, Mythical Games, Indie Showcase, Freedom Games, Ven, Capcom, and Razer. Nothing is really screaming out at me there. Capcom's is half an hour. So I wonder what Capcom's going to show us in half an hour. Obviously, we'll tune in.
It'd be interesting, Capcom.
And then, of course, the next big day is, of course, Tuesday, June 15th. 9 a.m. Pacific time or 5 p.m. here is Nintendo Direct. The thing that we're all waiting for, and that is a long-ass show. We've currently got it down as 5 hours, 25 minutes for the whole thing. Because it goes the Nintendo Direct. Yeah, Nintendo Direct and then the Treehouse Live, they're calling it.
Yeah, that's about right.
We've also got Bandai Namco. Obviously, I imagine that's 35 minutes. So I imagine most of that will be talking about Elden Ring. Obviously, they got Elden Ring out of the way nice and early. Now they'll focus on it. GameSpot Play for All Showcase, Eureka Studio, and then the official E3 2021 awards show takes place at 1:45 in the morning on Wednesday. You will not catch me live on that one, I can assure you. What are you looking forward to for the next couple of days at least? Is there any of those conferences that are screaming out to you? Something that you're looking forward to? Any announcements that you're still expecting that you haven't seen yet?
Just to touch back on the Square Enix presentation, I did happen to catch Stranger of Paradise, which is apparently a Final Fantasy Origin game. And it's from Ninja Gaiden and Tai Temco, I can't never pronounce their name, as well as Square Enix. But when you looked at it, you would never have guessed Final Fantasy, but it's also very much in the style of Devil May Cry meets Final Fantasy 15. It was
I think that was the code name, because they did have there was a leak a couple of weeks ago, which was Final Fantasy Origin was the name. And obviously, as you just said, it's an origin story, so to speak of. So it's I imagine that is the game that the leaks were referring to, basically.
Yeah, that looked really interesting. But in terms of what's coming, I mean, for me being a huge Nintendo fan and Zelda fan, it's, Breath of the Wild 2 or bust with Nintendo. Or they could save it for me with Super Mario Odyssey 2, but I don't know. I'm really curious to see what is going to be announced, because Nintendo don't like too much to sort of say, right, here's a load of stuff from something that's coming in, say, 18 months. They like to sort of say, right, this is what's coming this year. And then, okay, there's a little teaser for something that's coming early next year. They don't like to look too far forward. So, very curious to see what that'll be. And I know there's some concerns about Animal Crossing possibly getting an expansion or a paid sort of service to expand the game. Which I know some players aren't too much of a fan of when they're getting free updates every month, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued with. Yeah, I mean, the problem with Nintendo going forward is ultimately, I don't think Breath of the Wild 2 gets announced without the Nintendo Switch Pro getting announced as well. Because ultimately, that Breath of the Wild 2 will be a launch exclusive for the Nintendo Switch Pro. I think we'll touch upon Super Mario Odyssey 2. If that gets announced, Nintendo Switch Pro, 100%. I don't think that will come. That will be on both again. I don't know why they would refer to it as exclusive, because that's like saying a Nintendo Switch Pro exclusive is almost the same as saying a PS4 game is exclusive to the PS4 Pro and not the PS4 base, which is quite an odd one. Of course, I wonder how they're going to do that. But yeah, I'd be intrigued to see if they do announce the Nintendo Switch Pro. I was kind of hoping that they would have announced it before E3 kicked off, so that whenever people talk about games, they can add the Nintendo Switch Pro in there, but it hasn't happened. So we've got 5 hours on Tuesday. Surely the Nintendo Switch Pro's got to be announced, even at the end of the stream, with a Breath of the Wild 2 announcement, for example. And then doubling back at the end to say, all games that you've seen here are also coming out for Nintendo Switch Pro.
Yeah, they tend to do like a presentation at the start that say between an hour and a half, and then the rest of it is just sort of gameplay covering what they've already shown.
Yeah.
Probably a bit of Mario Golf, because that's out this month or next month.
That literally, June 25th, I think that got announced for, and that looks amazing.
A bit of that.
All I'm saying,
it does look a lot of fun.
Community night is going to change. I think a few of us will be getting that, especially with their rush mode, where it looks like you're running after the ball as well, which is quite exciting.
I must admit, it's one that didn't strike me when it was announced, but looking at some gameplay, I thought, that does look fun, actually. Especially
I reckon we'll get another. I mean, we just recently got a look of that from the Nintendo Direct last month. I imagine we'll probably see more information coming, on Tuesday as well.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily say. I mean, I'd be a little bit interested to see what more details with regards to Elden Ring are revealed for Bandai Namco on Tuesday. Take-Two interactive panel. I don't know what to expect from that at all, so I guess that'd be a little bit of a surprise if we get any announcements from Take-Two. Obviously, Take-Two being the parent company of Rockstar. If there's going to be anything, it's an interactive panel, so I can't imagine there being much there. They might just discuss saying they're in the works for something, but they haven't decided anything. And then I guess after that, obviously, it's just the I guess Capcom Monday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Pacific, so 10:30 here. Again, probably won't be staying up for that, because Monday is obviously normally a streaming day for me anyway, so I don't normally worry too much about that. But something I'll just touch upon and reflect on the following morning, and keep an eye as to the updates on there.
Yeah, probably the same.
But yeah, overall, I'd say it's definitely been an exciting stream so far in terms of what we've seen from E3. It's been exciting to see exactly what's come out of that. We'll have to wait and see for the next couple of days as to what else is announced, and we will certainly keep an eye out on that. But for now, I guess it's time to say our lovely goodbyes, because we've run out of game performances, and that means we've got got to keep an eye out and see what else we've missed, because whilst we've been live, it's the Warner Brothers games Back for Blood preview, so we're to find out more information about Back for Blood, and the PC gaming show, which it's absolutely no interest to me, but I'm sure some of those games on PC are going to be coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and all of it. Probably not Switch, but
yeah.
We'll just have to wait and see on that. So yeah, obviously, thank you very much, guys, for tuning in to our Mid-E3 discussion show. We may be back later on in the week to catch on, but it's great to have you here as we've tried something new, which is something we've not normally done before. So thank you very much for joining me, Sit Down, and
no problem. Thank you for having me.
yeah, and thank you to the audience, and hopefully we will see you guys in a few days' time for the next one. But for now, take care and goodbye.